She was afraid to be herself. She often stepped on the heads of her sisters, not realizing that what was hers, her dreams, her everything, was only hers to claim. She tried to please others. She tried to be what they would have her to be. She hid under a cloak. She covered up her real identity. She covered up her gifts, her strengths, her talents. She covered up her true essence. And then one day, she said, I can't please others. She said, I can't be what others would have me to be. She said, wonder if I take off this covering. Wonder if I reveal who I truly am. Wonder if I decide to be bold, to take a chance on me, to be who I was divinely blessed to be. And then slowly she began to get rid of the baggage, to let the negativity go, to let the discouragers, the distractors, those that had stopped dreaming. She decided to stop listening to the inner critic. She said, wonder if I start to be who I am. Wonder if I decide to answer the calling, the divine calling on my life. Destiny is calling me. Will I choose to answer? And slowly over time, with sisters holding her up, with folks giving her the spiritual fuel and the energy and the positive talk to make her have the courage to be who she was divinely destined to be. And slowly, she let the baggage go. She started to let the negativity go. She decided, I can't please everybody. And no matter what I do, they're not happy with me. They always have something else they suggest I be. So why don't I start by being me? And so, over time, she took the covering off. And she decided, why not take a chance on me? And over time, more and more, the baggage, the self-doubt, the discouragement, she let it go. And more, she took the covering off. And she said, I'm going to take a chance on me. I'm going to be me. And what I say to everybody in the room today, each of us, when we were given the gift of life, we had a divine assignment. Nobody can fulfill that assignment but you. And once we realize that, then we realize we don't have to step on the head of another sister. We realize that the more we give, the more we get. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot, and really not enough of us who understand that. Because I often say to people, if there was only one blessing, how could we not all thrive? Everybody in this room is breathing the oxygen. If the higher power, if God had only provided oxygen for only one person, where would be the rest of us? So that tells you there's enough blessings to go around. There's enough goodness to go around. And part of the theme for this International Women's Day is saying, be bold, for change, but change starts with that beautiful face that greets you in the mirror each and every morning, and the change starts with YOU. And once we understand that and we start to do that, then we don't have to imitate someone else. We don't have to be fearful of celebrating someone else. Because when we do that, when we understand, when we know and claim our own power and recognize who we are, we don't have to walk around with that attitude. Now, what I'm sharing with you is part of my own journey and what I realized in my work across the U.S., the Caribbean, Africa, and Europe, that there's some commonalities that we as women struggle with each and every day. That because of our nature, we want people to like us. And because of our nature, until we get that spiritual wholeness, we sometimes don't know how to acknowledge and celebrate someone else. In my own journey, I used to direct a program for a college in South Carolina called Talent Search. Most people have heard of Upward Bound, but I was a Talent Search director. And this was to help first generation college students find their way to college. And I worked in 16, me and my staff, 16 schools. And one day the guidance counselor asked me would I come and do a program because there were a group of girls that were really struggling. So I went in and I started doing a group called Girls Talk. And more, I developed it into a curriculum, and I learned as much from the girls as I could share with them. And what I realized, it doesn't matter whether you have a GED or a PhD. We struggle with some of the same insecurities. We struggle with a lot of the same doubt. And this led me to the writing of my first book, which is called Woman's Guide to Soulful Living, 7 Keys to Life and Work Success. And I want to share with you what I have found to be 7 keys that in my work with women globally and in my own daily journey of growth. And the first key is introspection. Introspection. Because if you don't know who you are, you will answer the call to whatever somebody tells you you are. So it starts with being clear with who you are. And not loving yourself when you say, when I lose that 10 pounds, or when I get that next job, or when I reach that next pinnacle in my life. It's loving yourself right now, in the now. So the first thing is introspection, getting to know who you are. The next key is vision. If you don't have a vision for your life, what's your destination? Where are you going? And so have a clear vision about where you want to go. The third key is purpose. Everybody in here has a divine purpose. And many of you in the room right now, you're sitting on your purpose. And you know what that means. If you're sitting on it, where is it? And that means that in those quiet moments, when you have those conversations with yourself, that book, that business, that project, it's really tugging at your heart. And it keeps nagging and nagging and nagging you. Pick me up and pursue me. I need you to do this. But often, and I ask people this question all the time, if you take fear and finances off the table, what would you be doing? What brings you to tears? What do you feel like if it is not addressed, that the world is just going to crash and burn? Those are some insights into your calling. The next key is habits. Well, our habits will make or break us. I have habits that, gosh, and if I said how many years, even though I like to try to think I'm younger, it'll tell you how old I am. I have habits I'm still grappling with. Yes. Be very careful. We have to be very careful as women what habits we allow to come into our space that we get comfortable with. Because it only takes a few days for something to become a habit, and it takes far longer for us to get rid of that habit. The next key is relationships. Relationships can make or break us as women. And often we feel like if we don't have a relationship in our space, that somehow our life has not begun. If people don't uplift you, if people are not supportive of you, that's not a healthy relationship. And far too many of us have not seen, we don't know what a healthy relationship looks like. And we often think that if someone is throwing us some crumbs, that that's good enough. Well, divinely, you weren't created to just for good enough. That is not. You need to constantly look in your relationships. And if you got a lot of crumb relationships, you need to clear the space. You need to move them on, because you were not divinely designed to really survive with crumb relationships. The next thing is faith, and I just call that really knowing that divinely what you're supposed to be doing, that divinely will come to you. And I'll share a story. In 2007, I was a vice president at Workforce One, which is now Career Source. And there was probably 4 or 5 years that I just heard the Spirit say, there's other work for you to do, other work for you to do. And I kept saying, I don't know. And I kept trying to push it away. And in 2005, my mother died. And then in 12 months, my father died. And that made me do a lot of reflection about life and calling. And I struggled with it because, you know, to the world it was like, oh, she's a vice president, she's Dr. DeFoe, and people often think just because you have a PhD that your world, that you riding on a magic carpet ride. And as I said, it doesn't matter educational level because our experiences are so similar. I had a father who was a school principal in one school district for 45 years. So I wasn't socialized to really let my wings out and soar. I was kind of trained to, you get one job and you stay there and hold on until you get the watch, you get the certificate, and they have the luncheon for you. But this thing kept nagging and nagging at me. And I said to myself one day, what are you more afraid of? You can always go back and find another job. Or are you really more concerned that you didn't answer the calling on your life? And so one day when it just became clear that I needed to move on, I finally stepped out on December 17th, 2007, and started doing consulting work. And it started out, it was a magic carpet ride, and me and a friend, we got this. My first contract out was this $30,000 contract, and a friend of mine who had been doing it for 25 years, he said to me, let me tell you something, Doc. This is unusual. So don't get comfortable. Don't think it's going to happen all the time. So I rode my magic carpet for a while. For the first year, it was wonderful. And then I did everything I thought that I could do to really control everything. Well, of course, maybe a year and a half, it didn't, things kind of shifted. The magic carpet ride kind of went down. The Great Recession came in, and I was like, oh gosh, what have I done? And I could hear my father's voice saying, Anita, Anita, Anita. So I said, what am I going to do? And I had lived and worked in the Virgin Islands for so long that they say I'm a Virgin Islander. So I said, let me go back to where I had more time than I had opportunity. Within a week there, I had a contract with the Department of Labor. I had another contract with Department of Human Services. But unfortunately, government doesn't always pay swiftly. So I was like, oh God. So here, and my story is about faith and how fear gets you. I was like, what have I done? I was like, maybe I should have stayed on Emory, and maybe I should have stayed and worked for his wood. But anyway, I kept pushing, because I had the contracts, but you know, the pay was slow. And I was supposed to appear at a book festival in Baltimore. And I was like, Lord, I'm gonna have to turn this over to you. I was like, clients haven't paid. Credit cards maxed out. You know, I can't call daddy, which I never hardly asked him for money because I was fiercely independent. So I said, oh goodness, what am I going to do? I said, well, God, I'm supposed to be there. You must. Yes. So something, maybe 2 or 3 days passed, and Spirit said, check your voicemail in Florida. So I called. And there is a message. Dr. DeFoe, this is the Maryland Food Bank, and we want to engage you to do training because we're trying to build capacity for food banks across the state of Maryland. Wow. I get the call. I call the person back, of course, immediately. Didn't get her, so I was like, oh Lord. So I kept calling, we were missing each other back and forth, and then finally, I said, well, this isn't gonna happen. So I said, let me just let this go. And then into my spirit came a message from Bishop T.D. Jakes that says, it's at the door. And he said that often in our journey, and what keeps us from being bold really is that we give up. And many times if we would just take one more step, that what is divinely to be ours, we will manifest it. And many of us, when it gets very uncomfortable, we give up. So I said, well, let me try one more time. So I call, we connect. She said, Dr. DeFoe, I'm so sorry. She said, we've been trying to organize everything for this event. She said, I know you usually require deposits. She said, but we want to engage you to come and do a training. Now, mind you, and this is where faith comes in, people contact me to do trainings around the world. So that wasn't what was so mysterious, even to me to this day. And this keeps me with faith, even when I feel that there is a cloud over my head. She said, do you mind if we pay you when you get here? And I said, of course not. But the mystery of this all, and I still to this day don't know how they found me, except it was divine intervention. Wow. They flew me there the weekend I needed to be there for the book festival. I got on the airplane because they paid the ticket. They sent a driver for me. I'll never forget this. I had $20 in my pocket and I had my books. And I got on this plane with these maxed out credit cards. And they flew me there. They picked me up. I did the training. And it was the weekend I needed to be there for that book festival. Now that is nothing but divine intervention. And so what I'm saying to everybody in the room, if you choose to walk in purpose, and if you really answer the call divinely, what you need, it will come. It may not come on your time frame, but it will come. You just have to be bold. And you have to be willing to be a bit uncomfortable, to even do it while you're scared, but to keep pushing. And the last key is resiliency. Because being able to withstand those winds of change, it requires us to learn the lesson, but use it as we move on into our present and our future. Because if you spend all your time like this, in the rearview mirror, you're going to run into something. And you can't spend all your time, woulda, coulda, shoulda, what should I have done? That's not being bold. And that's not being for change. It all starts with you and looking in the mirror each and every day. The last thing I want to share, my mentor, John Maxwell, teaches us all the time that there's much a difference between answering your calling and a job. Mm-hmm. That everybody in here has a calling. And he was sharing with us that he's often asked the question, and John just had a birthday 70 something, and he was asked, how have you been able to really maintain your level of excellence for all these years? And the first thing he said is, my work is a calling. There's a difference between having a calling and just a job, because a job, you're just doing that and trying to get the next promotion. You're trying to hold on for those 30 years. He said, but my work is a calling. He said, and I was calling, I was called. As he said, I didn't plan to be a writer. He said, I was always and first and foremost a minister. And I told my fiance at the time that, I'm probably going to be a poor minister most of the time. So let me tell you this. Let me let you know, so in case you don't want to accept this proposal. He said that he was having a challenge in his church. And that's when he wrote his first leadership book. And here we are now, some 70 books later, translated all around the world. And so sometimes things that we look at and think they're an obstacle, is really an opportunity in the making for us. Assemble a team, and we've heard that theme today. He has a teaching team, and as a group, they work to really spread what we call JMT DNA. His whole aspect, his whole philosophy about leadership. He also understands about retirement. He said, people ask him, well, John, when are you going to retire? You all every place. And then he just started the John Maxwell team a few years ago. And he said, I'm going to retire when I die, because that's my calling. And so everybody here in the room, whether it's politics, whether it's business, whether it's health, whatever it is, everybody in here has a calling. But what becomes the difficulty is if you choose to answer. Because it's easy to get into that comfort zone and just kind of, what I call it, grin and bear it, and be at a job where you're hitting the snooze button every morning trying to make yourself get up. And of course, we all have the economic realities that we have to face. But when we earnestly figure out a way to really answer the calling of what is burning in our hearts and our spirits, that is being bold. And that is being fearless. And sometimes you got to take a chance on you. And sometimes you might have to be on a dual path as you really are exploring your divine calling. But what I want to close with saying today is, it's not just about International Women's Day, March 8th. It's about us being fearless each and every day. It's about us choosing to walk our own truth, answering the call on your life, and not walking around hiding who you are. Too often as women, we are afraid to acknowledge and celebrate our own power and our own brilliance. If you look at all, and it has really grown into a major industry, the coaching industry. Northwestern University has this report out that it says the things that are inherent in women, we want to build consensus, we want everybody in the room to be happy. All the skills that coaches are working to really strengthen in other people, particularly men, there are things that come naturally to women. But we don't understand our own power. And we are afraid to often acknowledge this. And I'll just share this. Me and a dear sister friend of mine in Jamaica, Dr. Anita Davis-DeFoe, she has this brilliant book out called Blood, Bodies, and Bullets. And she talks about how culture and social conditions, how it has really shaped the Jamaican landscape. And we were doing an event, and she said, Anita, did you sometimes go into the room and you're the only woman there at the table with a group of men, and everybody in the room is saying, go left, and you know that they should be making a decision right, but you, even when you have the right answer, you're sometimes afraid to say something, that you sit there quietly and you know that they are way off base. But because we feel uncomfortable, we won't say anything. And we talked about this at great length. And from that, and really I say God wrote it, my last book is called Follow Her Lead. Leadership Lessons for Women as They Journey from the Back Room to the Boardroom. And I used to teach leadership at universities, but what I found is there's a lot of books out here about theory, but it doesn't talk about the mindset and the mindset that we as women need to have, not only in our professional lives, but our personal lives. So I say, honor who you are. Acknowledge your brilliance. Get you a mastermind group of women who will celebrate you, encourage you. But sometimes they have to pull you on the coattail and pull you in check and say, now, Anita, you know that don't make sense. You need to stop. We need that kind of friend as well. But in the end, be you. Be bold. And know that change starts with us as women. Because we hear a lot about the girls' effect, but there's also something called the women's effect. And if you look at the World Economic Forum, if you look at a lot of researchers, they realize, and you see all this investment and conversation about investing in girls and women. Because what the research says is that women tend to spend 80% of any income that they earn back into the economy. So investing in women has become an economic development thing. And so we got to know our power, because when you educate them, when women get strong and when we are the catalyst for change, we're able not only to change families, we're able to change communities, and ultimately we are able to change the world. On that note, I'm going to drop the mic.